President, we welcome the participation in today's meeting, Her Excellency, the Chairwoman of the Presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ms. Zeka Cvijanovic. We're deeply disquieted that the situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina has entered a completely new, extremely dangerous phase. The Western community has become directly involved in the systemic domestic political crisis in the country. External forces acting through the Office of the High Representative, OHR, and a number of international presidents in Sarajevo are openly manipulating the deepening inter-ethnic and inter-party contradictions, grossly abusing the role they were given pursuant to the General Framework Agreement on Peace in Bosnia and Herzegovina, dated 1995, the Dayton Agreement. We're particularly concerned by the destructive activities of the self-styled High Representative. The steering board of the Peace Implementation Council previously agreed a course towards transferring all responsibility to the Bosnian peoples. This has been cast aside and forgotten. Grossly meddling in the domestic affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the pseudo-HR is acting in this sovereign and independent European state, exhibiting behavior that's in line with the worst colonial trends, interfering in the constitution of one of the two entities, the Federation. The Federation's criminal code and its electoral legislation has nothing to do with helping implement the peace agreement, no matter how hard Mr. Schmidt and his Western sponsors try to make it out to be the case. The situation has gotten so out of hand that Mr. Schmidt is now taking decisions on the composition of the government of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. As for the constitution, we cannot but mention this very important body, the Constitutional Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a body which is supposed to stand sentinel in defense of the interests of the country, is now increasingly becoming a tool serving the interests of Western capitals, frequently acting in concert with the OHR. To date, 3 out of the 9 judges serving on the Constitutional Court are foreign nationals. So who is toiling to secure the well-being of Bosnians, a German, an Albanian, and a Swiss national? This is a particularly blatant example of how not to respect the sovereignty of a state in the 21st century, and a Central European country at that. Outside forces are refashioning as they see fit, according to a vision completely divorced from reality, refashioning the areas of Bosnia and Herzegovina's domestic policies. In doing so, they're multiplying the country's problems, making them chronic. They're giving off the impression of addressing these issues. The repercussions of this criminal action will have ramifications on generations of Bosnians. We want to state this frankly, shouldering our responsibility here before the Security Council, and we want to do this already today. The steering board is now a club centering around certain hobbies. Its interests are completely at odds with the interests of the peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Once again, we've seen that our decision to suspend our participation in the work of the steering board was both timely and fully justified. We demand the resumption of the practice of dialogue and consensus. The Office of the High Representative should be shut down as soon as possible. All it's doing, the OHR for Bosnia and Herzegovina, is ill. The experiment the West staged on Bosnian society has run its course. It's time to liberate the people from this humiliation. Increasing mass protests against the OHR attest to the fact that this idea is very relevant. The objective of the West is clear. There's nothing confusing about it. Its intent is to use the legal toolkit of the OHR to completely overhaul the politics of Bosnia and Herzegovina at all levels, to destruct the system that strikes an international balance, to install forces who answer to Washington and Brussels, and to send in NATO forces, despite the sovereign will of the peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The outcome will be disastrous, not only for the region, but for all of Europe. The Security Council cannot turn a blind eye to what's happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's illegal. The polyethnic setup in the country, as per the Dayton Agreement, is in danger. The Western countries are waging a classic neocolonial approach in Bosnia and Herzegovina, threatening the implementation of the peace agreement. What's more is the very foundations of Bosnia and Herzegovina's statehood are being undermined. The fundamental rights of the constituent peoples are being violated, and tensions are being ratcheted up yet another notch. President, we won't comment on the so-called report of the so-called High Representative. Disseminating the narratives thought up by a private individual as a UN Security Council document is unacceptable in our view. Let us underscore once again, the Security Council did not decide that Mr. Schmidt should be appointed as High Representative. There is no such decision. We were disappointed by the EU4 Affairs 55th report on the state of play in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As you know, the mandate of Althea does not include an assessment of the domestic political situation in the country. And yet, there it is. It's there in the report. What's more is, it is biased and does not reflect the reality on the ground. We stand convinced that it exaggerates the situation and pins the blame on Bosnian Serbs and nobody else. And this is nothing but yet another attempt for some EU countries to further their interests using Althea. Thus, we recommend that the forces leadership should focus on security assessments, conducting security assessments, which have been of invariably high quality. We invite Security Council members to pursue a report by the RS, which truly does merit our attention, is replete with evidence-based information about what's actually going on. We call on the Council to conduct a realistic assessment of the situation. We shouldn't blindly believe what biased Western players and the illegitimate High Representative are trying to impress upon us. Instead, we should think long and hard about how to address issues in BAH, looking at the issue through the prism of the Dayton Agreement endorsed by the Security Council. Russia is one of the countries which bore witness to the signing of the Dayton Accord. We wholeheartedly support the fundamental principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, equality of the three constituent peoples, and the two entities with broad constitutional powers. We stand convinced that the key to resolving the domestic Bosnian problems lies solely in inclusive international dialogue without outside interference and through dialogue rooted solely in the provisions of the Dayton Agreement. Thank you very much.